buying a fresh turkey, you want to buy it at least 2 days in advance. If you're buying a frozen turkey, you're going to want to buy it 5 days in advance. When buying your turkey, you want to plan on leaving about 1.5 pounds per person. If you're cooking for a large crowd, you're better off getting 2 smaller birds instead of 1 massive one. With a bigger turkey, it's going to take so long to cook. By the time the whole bird is cooked through, the outside is going to be almost inedible. The safety concerns you want to focus on when thawing your turkey in a fridge is making sure that you're first putting your turkey on some sort of baking tray to catch any juices if they leak through the bag. Also, keeping it on the bottom will ensure that there's nothing below it. You don't want raw turkey juice all over your fridge. With a fresh turkey, you still want to buy it early because the refrigerators at the grocery store are much colder than what you have at home, and it's still going to be pretty solid, so you want to make sure that it's totally defrosted in your fridge for a day. If your turkey's frozen, there's 2 ways to defrost it. One, you could do it in the fridge. You could also do a quicker method by sticking your turkey in a big sink or even a cooler and filling it up with fresh cold water every 30 minutes until it's totally defrosted. You should allow about 30 minutes to thaw for each pound of turkey. A day before you're gonna cook your turkey, you're gonna wanna brine it. There's 2 different kinds of ways to brine. The traditional method is to wet brine, which basically means sitting your turkey in a saltwater solution. We're gonna do a dry brine, which just means we're just gonna rub salt all over it. It's a little bit less wasteful and also easier to do. First things first, you're gonna measure out the amount of salt you need. You're gonna wanna take a look at the weight of your turkey and use ½ teaspoon per pound. Before you get the turkey out, you wanna get a few things ready to go. Make sure you have a garbage nearby, a pair of kitchen shears, a plastic bag, and a fresh baking tray with a rack on it. So you want to cut the plastic off the bird, making sure not to cut the skin or flesh of the turkey, and remove the turkey from the whole bag. And then take that baking tray away with the bag and replace it with the fresh baking tray with the rack on it. So then we're gonna get our bag ready to go, and we're gonna start cutting off any excess that we definitely aren't gonna use. If there's extra skin around the neck, you can go ahead and cut that off. Then turn your bird around, and if the turkey legs are secured in that plastic holder, go ahead and release them so that you can easily get into the cavity. So then you're gonna reach in and grab any innards or a bag of giblets.
And some people use these for gravy, but in this recipe we're not going to, so you can just discard them.
And then using a disposable paper towel, dry off your bird by patting it on all sides and all the crevices. Lift the legs, lift the arms, and make sure the whole bird is dry so that the salt will stick to the skin. So you can start by just sprinkling the salt all over the bird. And again, you're gonna wanna get under all the arms and all the crevices, in the cavity, on top of all the skin. Turn the bird over, just salt the entire thing to make sure that it's coated entirely in salt. And then you're gonna put it in the fridge uncovered for 1 day. If you're gonna brine any longer than that, you're gonna wanna cover it with cling film until a day before, and then you can take off the cling film and let the skin dry out. And this process is going to work as a flavor enhancer. It's also going to allow the meat to hold on to more moisture and dry out the skin so it's nice and crispy. You're gonna wanna start prepping your turkey for cooking a few hours before you wanna serve it, but again, that's gonna largely depend on the weight of your turkey. Before you get your turkey out, you're gonna make a butter mixture, and you can put whatever you want in here. You wanna start with some softened butter. We chose to go with fresh sage, chopped garlic, dried thyme, and dried rosemary. We used a smaller amount of dried thyme and rosemary because those are quite strong. It's gonna be a much more powerful flavor than fresh herbs. And then you're gonna mash all of that together. You can do this a day in advance, all the way up to just before you prep the turkey. And once that's all ready to go, just leave it off to the side in preparation for your turkey. So to roast your turkey, you can use one of the more traditional roasting pans, or you can use one of the one-time use aluminum trays. They're cheap, they're easy. It's also great if you don't have a lot of storage in your kitchen. Just put a baking tray underneath it for support. A lot of roasting pans will come with this rack, but we're actually not going to use it. It doesn't allow for great air circulation underneath the turkey and leaves for a soggy bottom as well as longer cooking time. So first we're going to cut off the wingtips, and you're going to feel for the joint and then cut right in the middle of that. And then put the wingtips into the roasting pan to use for the gravy. And next we want to cut off the wishbone, and this is going to make your life a lot easier when you're carving later. And the easiest way to do that is to cut off any extra skin so you can see the wishbone, and you'll see kind of this white outline that looks like a wishbone. And then you're going to get in with a little paring knife, and you want to cut the flesh on either side of the bone. Slowly work your way from the tip all the way down to the 2 legs, and then you can go in with your finger and kind of tug at it, and it should come loose. And if it's still pretty stuck to the bones, you can also use kitchen shears to cut it loose. And then you can kind of get your hand in there and twist the top off. And once you release the wishbone, you can throw that in the roasting tray as well for gravy. And then you can move the roasting tray aside for now to make more room. And then turn the bird so that the legs are facing towards you. If your turkey came with one of those plastic holders, we want to get rid of that before we cook it. So you can kind of reach in there and give it a good tug, and it should come out pretty easily. So now you want to start loosening the skin from the breast to make room for some butter. And you're gonna peel the skin up a little bit and then use your fingers to release the skin from the breast. And you can also use a rubber spatula instead of your hands. Just be careful that you don't pierce the skin. And putting the butter under the skin is going to keep the breast moist as well as keep the skin crispy. And it also means we're not gonna have to baste the bird because we have the butter already trapped in here, and that will again result in crispier skin. Once you're happy you have enough of the butter under the skin, you're gonna rub the rest of the butter all over the remainder of the bird. And similar to the other steps, you wanna make sure you're getting in every crevice, lift up the legs, turn it over, fully season the bird in the herb butter. If you have any remaining butter, you can rub a little bit of that inside all around the cavity as well. And instead of stuffing, we're going to put just a few aromatics in, but not too many that it's going to block the airflow. And this will give it a little bit of extra flavor while leaving plenty of room for hot air to flow through during cooking. And then with the rest of the onion, you can chop that up, throw it in the roasting pan with a chopped up carrot and a little bit of celery as well for flavor. And then empty a carton of chicken broth into the roasting pan as well. And then to avoid any mess on the way to the oven, you can place your rack on top of the roasting tray just to avoid any dripping in your kitchen. And then any juices that came out of the turkey when you were buttering it can go in as well. This isn't a super traditional gravy, but it's gonna give you tons of flavor, and all the drippings from the cooking of the turkey will drip into the roasting pan and flavor the gravy as well. You wanna place the roasting pan on the lowest rack of your oven. And then with the turkey on that baking rack, you're gonna put that directly on the oven rack right above the roasting tray. We baked our turkey at 325 for about 2 hours, but what you're really looking for is to make sure that the turkey is reading at 165 degrees Fahrenheit before serving it. But take it out of the oven when it reaches 160 degrees Fahrenheit, and while it's resting, the temperature will continue to rise an extra 5 or so degrees. It's a good idea to start checking it about 90 minutes in. The turkey's gonna cook a lot quicker in this method because you haven't stuffed the cavity and there's more airflow all around the bird. You're gonna rest the bird for about 20 to 30 minutes before you start carving it. And juices might still flow out of it a little bit, so it's a good idea to put this on a baking rack just to catch any of those juices. And in the meantime, you can finish off the gravy. So then we're going to take out all of the larger pieces that we can grab with tongs, and then you're gonna strain the gravy over a pot. And then at this point, you're gonna bring this to a boil and reduce that and let it thicken. This stock is good to use as is and it will soak right into the turkey, but if you want it a little bit thicker, ladle a few spoonfuls into a small bowl filled with 2 tablespoons of flour and really beat it to make sure that there's no lumps. And then you can kind of gradually stir a bit into the gravy. And as the gravy boils, that's what's going to trigger the flour to thicken the sauce. So wait till it boils first before you decide if you need more. To keep it warm while you carve, you can put it on a very low heat on the stove top at this point and just stir it every few minutes. You can put it in a gravy boat at this point. You can put it in a thermos even to keep it really warm. Or you can just reheat it right before you serve it, giving it a quick whisk to smooth it out again. So first we're going to transfer the turkey onto a large cutting board with a lip to catch any juices. To stabilize the bird, you can release the legs from the body, and then that will make it a little bit easier to carve it. And to do that, you're going to find where the leg kind of meets the breast, cut down that line and kind of follow the same line. And you don't have to cut all the way through at this point, you're just kind of gonna get it started. You can use your hands to pull the leg and the thigh off the carcass. At this point, the hip joint should pop out pretty easily. And to make it even more stable, you can tuck that leg underneath the wing bone. To cut off the breast, you're going to find the breastbone, which is right down the middle, and then you're gonna cut just on the side of that. You can go almost straight down, kind of following the line of the breastbone, and this should be pretty easy since we did the work earlier of removing the wishbone. You're gonna cut down as far as you can, and then if you need to release it, you can cut horizontally right by the wing and release the breast from the carcass. And when you were pulling the legs, if you weren't able to release the hip joint from the carcass, just go through at this point and cut all the way through that joint and release any extra skin or meat that's still connected to the carcass. And we'll put this aside and finish cutting it later. The wings can be a little tricky as well. To release the wings, you're looking to find where the shoulder meets the breast. If you're having a lot of trouble with it, you can just actually use your hands to release the joint, and then once you kind of pop it out, then you can use your knife to finish the job. So if you had any remaining breast meat that you weren't able to get off when you cut the breast off the first time, that'll come off when you remove the wing. Don't throw this away just yet. Inevitably, there's gonna be a little bit of meat left on the carcass. After dinner, you can always get the remaining meat off of there, and you can use that for leftovers later, or use the whole carcass in a soup. We'll start with the breast, and what we're gonna do is get it back on your cutting board. What you're doing here is cutting across the grain, and that'll make it more tender. And also, it's going to give everyone a piece of the crispy
skin instead of that one lucky person if you were to cut slices off the bird. And you can set those aside on your platter. And for the leg, we're going to cut the drumstick off of the thigh. What you're trying to do is cut through the joint, which should happen pretty easily, but it's kind of difficult to find. So you can kind of do an exploratory cut and get through the flesh so you can see where you're going. And you can kind of wiggle your knife to find it. If it's really difficult, you should probably just pick up your knife and try a different area. Or once you've cut most of the meat, you can use your hands to just kind of pop the joint off. Now you can put the drumstick on the platter, and with the thigh, we're gonna cut the meat off the bone. You can turn the thigh over and see where the bone is, and then cut on either side, and then just cut that into bite-sized pieces. And for the wings, you're just gonna cut through this joint. So you're just gonna cut off the skin and any meat that's on there, and then you can use your hands to release the flat from the wing. And once you pop the joint, you can use your knife to cut through any remaining skin or meat. And you can cut off any extra breast meat that was left on the wing. And now that you have all the meat on the platter, you can kind of rearrange it and make sure that it's nice and presentable. And you can put the nicer parts with a nice brown, crispy skin on top, maybe the kind of more random pieces underneath that. And as a nice finishing touch, you can add some fresh sage if you have any left over for color, maybe some lemons. This can be a nice way to cover up any imperfections, but also just add a nice kind of bright freshness. Cooking a turkey can be a daunting task, but this recipe is great because it's so simple, it's low maintenance, and it's really delicious. Now's the best part. You get to douse it in gravy, and everyone can tell you how delicious your turkey is. You did it. It wasn't that hard, and you know, it's beautiful, and everyone's gonna appreciate your work no matter what. And if they don't, make them do the dishes.